Welcome to Paranormal Files Into the Darkness. I am your host, Sean Wagner. Tonight, Chuck and I'm bringing back Big Chuck Lawson. We'll be talking with the paranormal detective, author, paranormal explorer, researcher, and international lecturer, Greg Lawson. Check it out right now after our intro. The paranormal world is one of moving shadows. Strange figures hidden just out of sight. Supernatural phenomena usually offers more questions than answers. Spirits, demons, and the undead. Join us as we journey into the darkness with researchers, investigators, psychics, or mediums, each one getting us one step closer to the truth. I'm Sean Wagner, and these are the Paranormal Files. All right.
That's awesome, man. What a great intro, Sean.
Give Brendan all the credit because I'm not capable of doing that kind of thing.
He's the man.
That's for sure. Of course, everyone knows the great Big Chuck Lawson. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm good, Sean. Thanks for having me on tonight, man. It was a nice surprise to, first of all, see your phone call, see you call me and then want me on the show. So I appreciate you asking me, and this sounds like it's going to be a good show.
Should be a great show. We have, we have a great guest with us tonight. Also, this show is a super chat, so please give us a like and a share on Facebook or a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts on YouTube and share. Thank you. All right. Also, if you have any questions on the way, please put them in all capital letters. Now, for the real introduction, he is a paranormal explorer, researcher, and international lecturer who discusses various paranormal investigative topics and specific cases to bring to light the true nature of events. He has been a guest speaker at the Michigan ParaCon, Ireland ParaCon, the Texas Para-Unity Festival, and SAGE ParaCon in England, to name a few. He can be found in the radio archives of many different paranormal shows and podcasts to include The Creaking Door, Darkness Radio, House of Mystery Radio on NBC, and Coast to Coast AM. He is currently part of the Paranormal 60 News team with Eric Folsom, Valles, sorry, Martin, and Dave Schrader of Travel Channel's The Holzer Files and The Ghost of Devil's Perch. He also has some videos and interviews at his own YouTube channel, The Paranormal Detective. Greg Lawson has traveled to over 40 countries, visiting some of Earth's strangest sites and conducting his own investigation of their paranormal histories. He's also a 30-year law enforcement officer, professional investigator, police academy instructor, college educator, and former expert witness for investigative procedures. He also researches and investigates human paranormal experience and locations known for spiritual or unusual activity. He has authored 2 books on the subject and specializes in providing alternative perspectives to explain human experience. All right. He's also a 10-year military veteran with the Army, Navy, and Air Force, all 3 branches, and is currently the Training Academy Lieutenant and Director of Training for a large law enforcement agency in Central Texas. He uses the thousands of hours of training he has received through his profession and his experience as a detective, along with his master's degree in education, to study paranormal human experience and physical anomalies. He has been, with deployments, he has been to Central America, Europe, Northern Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and 2 Western Pacific Sea deployments. He's also a lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Affairs and holds an honorary admiral commission in the Texas Navy. He's also received his bachelor's degree in applies arts and sciences and his master's degree in education, specializing in complex adaptive human systems. He's a proud alumni of Texas State University. His books include Roswell, The After Action Report, Diaries of a Paranormalist, Encounters with Death, and How to Be a Paranormal Detective. They're all available on Amazon. You also have the Orient Express, One Way Ticket to the Other Side, and the Carry On, Something Rotten in Paradise, are available through Barnes & Noble. His website is theparanormaldetective.com. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is Greg Lawson. Thank you for serving the military and in law enforcement. How you doing?
I'm good, man. That sounds like a bunch of BS right there.
It was a mouthful, I can tell you that.
Wow.
How long is your resume? Like 16 pages?
At least.
People are like, Army, Navy, and Air Force. Really? I'm like, yeah, I have Armed Forces Attention Deficit Disorder. Whatever, man. I didn't think I was going to live this long. It's been a huge disappointment. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets quiet after that.
Yeah. And then, so go ahead, Sean.
So, yeah, man, I'm glad to be here.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you.
I'm obviously sitting here in a graveyard. So that's
a perfect setting for our show.
I'm in a log cabin.
Nice.
And I'm in my living room.
Hey.
Not the false one with the beautiful baby grand piano.
You're probably the smarter one there.
All right, to a good show.
Yeah. Hey.
Cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
Thanks for being on.
You bet, man. Glad to be here. It's been raining all day here in Austin, Texas, up here in Georgetown. It's been raining and it is beautiful. It's so wonderful. And years and years ago, we had a really bad drought. I actually owned some land outside of Austin in a little place called McDade. And man, we had a really bad patch for about, 2 years or so. And I always promised, being in Texas, I will never, ever complain about the rain.
Right.
So, yeah, it's nice to have it. So it's poured down all day today.
That was awesome. That's where the bats come out. They fly out from the bridge.
It does. Yeah. You know, the crazy part about that is that in the Travel Channel,
Mm-hmm.
they voted or they did a show on the 10 scariest places in the United States. Austin, Texas was number one because of the bats. Because of the bats. Yeah. You go down there on the Congress Bridge, right in front of the Four Seasons Hotel. You stand there, and when they come out, it is a cloud, and it lasts for an hour flowing out of that bridge.
Wow.
There's millions and millions of them. You know, the funny thing is that is the second largest bat colony in Texas. They're Mexican free-tailed bats. The largest one is in Round Rock, which is the town just north of Austin, which is now part of Austin, I guess. But there is a bridge on I-35 that when they constructed it, it had these gaps in it or whatever. That is the largest free-tailed bat colony in Texas. And it's crazy because you're going north on 35. And if it's around, dusk, the traffic backs up like crazy because it looks like the bridge is on fire. There's just nothing but smoke coming out of there. And you get close to it and it's like, oh, those are all bats coming out of there. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So hopefully Austin doesn't have a mosquito problem then, right?
Yeah, we still do. Yeah. Our mosquitoes are really small. They're hard to get to. They're not like, like Michigan mosquitoes or Alaskan mosquitoes where they're giant and they're the size of birds. But yeah, ours are just really small and hard to get to, I guess.
So too many mosquitoes for the bats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a video or two on the bats flying out of the bridge. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But getting back towards topic a little bit, I always like to ask because you never know what the answer is going to be, and it varies for everybody. What did your parents think of the paranormal and such growing up and everything?
Well, my dad was a very much of an entrepreneur and business guy. So he was very, very busy doing other stuff. So he was funding, his 4 children to be artists and musicians and stuff like that. My mom was a homemaker and was raised and went to Catholic school. So I was raised Roman Catholic. So that right there in and of itself is paranormal, right? I mean, there's no... I don't think there's any religion on the planet, any mainstream religion on the planet that's more paranormal than Roman Catholicism. So yeah, ghosts in the form of the Holy Ghost and the saints and turning the bread and wine actually into the flesh and blood and consuming that. And that's pretty paranormal, man. A lot of people don't realize it. I talk to friends of mine that are Catholic, and I'm like, yeah, I just can't get past the whole transubstantiation of bread and wine actually turning into physical body and blood And they go, no, that's just symbolic. I said, if you say that again, that means you're Lutheran. that means you're Episcopalian. That means that you're, Episcopal, because that is the tenet. That is, one of the main tenets of Roman Catholicism is the transubstantiation and the mystery of the Eucharist. So, yeah. So I was raised that way. My brother tortured me. He would when he was 12 years older than me, so I was 5 and he was 17. Mm-hmm. He had a Triumph Bonneville motorcycle, and this is like in 1970. Oh, I guess it would have been in 1960 something. Triumph Bonneville motorcycle, and he would stick me on the gas tank with no helmet or anything, and we'd go riding around and look for graveyards and weird places and abandoned buildings. So we were doing the original urban exploration and ghost hunting back then when it wasn't a thing. I didn't really realize it was a thing until maybe 20 years ago or so, because it was just something I naturally did when I was in the military. All through high school, we hung out in the graveyards and hung out in the abandoned buildings and did that sort of thing. And then I go into the Army when I was 18, and I got to deploy to Alaska. I was in Central America. I was in North Africa and the Middle East. I was with the Rapid Deployment Unit with 82nd Airborne Division. So I got to go to a lot of places. And back then, you had to go to a place called a library. And it had these things called books that had secrets hidden in them. And you would open the book and you didn't just, Google, scary stuff in Guatemala, and it boop pops up.
It's so much easier now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's not qualified either. You're not getting this information out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. You're getting it from Joe Blow that went there last year, and something weird happened, and he puts it.
And anyone can modify a Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, I'd still like Wikipedia a lot, but yes, you're right. Yeah, and so I would go do that. So wherever I would go, I would, if I was on post, I would run. All right, we're going to Egypt. We're going to be deployed to Egypt. So I'm going to go and look at the, what's weird in Egypt. So whenever we got time off, that's where I would go. So, 10 years, I got to do quite a few different countries and got to some really obscure, strange places that normally, people don't go to. And that's another thing I really enjoy doing is, there's so many people going to, you can pick any of the, like Lizzie Borden house. You're going to go you're going to investigate the Lizzie Borden house. Yeah. Like with the other 100,000 people that use it as a bed and breakfast. Right.
Sure.
I like going to the really obscure places, some of the off the beaten path that, people aren't really talking about and trying to discover what's going on there. So
yeah, because you can go to the most haunted place on a given night, get nothing. If you heard a rumor of a place and other people can substantiate they've gotten stuff there before, it's certainly worth a try.
Yeah. You never know. Definitely.
What was your favorite place in the military that you visited over those 10 years?
So I could modify why can't I just answer questions? People ask me questions all the time and I'm like, let me qualify this question. So if I could modify your question, what place would I want to go back to?
That would work too. Sure.
Okay. That would be Alaska.
Oh, really?
So I'm, grow up in Texas. Family is in Kentucky. Summers in Kentucky are very hot. Texas summers are very hot and winters are reasonable and typically warm, except for a couple of months. And so when I went in the Army, they said, you can do whatever you want to. What do you want to do? I'm like, I want to jump out of airplanes and shoot guns and stuff. And they're like, all right, we got a job for you. And you can pick where you want to go. Where do you want to go? I was like, I get to pick where I want to go. I want to go to Panama. Or you can pick 3 places and they'll pick the 3. I'm like, okay, Panama, Italy, Hawaii. They sent me to Alaska. Bastards. Yeah. So, So yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in the military is going to Alaska. It was a incredible experience. The spiritualism up there. People ask me all the time, you ever, tell me about a ghost you've seen or whatever. I said, I really haven't seen any ghosts. Like there's a ghost standing right there. But when I was in Alaska, I had some experiences in Alaska that were more metaphysical, I guess, be more spiritual. And that would be in line with me being Catholic and going through catechism and going to, instead of going to summer camp, I went to seminary in the summertime. The college seminarians would leave and then they would kind of turn that into an indoctrination camp. And you would go there. And so that's kind of what it was up in Alaska. I think I was just in line to think more and pay more attention to like nature and the feel. But yeah. So that's where I would go. The coolest place, obviously, if you were just going to snap your fingers and go back someplace, it would be obviously Egypt. Just because there's civilizations all around you under the sand. It's everywhere, so.
Oh yeah. All the pyramids and everything. Yeah.
Well, there's there's a lady, I forget what her name is. I need to be better than that. Start remembering people's names. There's a lady that a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, was working on her master's or her PhD in archaeology, and decided to see if she could get time on some of the satellites. I think they were geosynchronous satellites, and the universities will bid for time, and you'll get like an hour on this satellite, and you can do whatever you want, whatever the tools are on the satellite, and so she was doing laser mapping, and she did a laser map of the Yucatan. That is one big city. There is just the forms and everything out there in the jungle is, you can see the roads. It's there. And obviously, the Mexican government is very protective of all that, and they're doing whatever they're doing with that. And there's a lot of really cool stuff off of the coast of India. Dwarka, the city of Dwarka is probably there. They're protecting that area. There's a big city that a oil and gas company discovered while they were out there doing some surveys. And it is in about 70 feet of water, which makes sense because, quite a few years ago, the oceans were, 90 feet lower or so. And so it would make sense because we tend to migrate toward the coastlines and have cities on coastlines. So if the sea was down that far, naturally you would have cities out there. And so all in the Indian Ocean, up in that area, in the northern North Sea, in north of England, there's all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty amazing. All that stuff is amazing to me.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to ask.
Can I throw you off?
All right.
I think it's time for a drink.
Yeah, definitely time for a drink. What are you drinking, out of curiosity?
Oh, really? I'm gonna say bourbon, but it's coffee. Sorry.
Nice.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Been a long day.
I understand. Also, wanted to know stuff that you've learned from law enforcement. Has that helped you do paranormal investigations at all?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And here's the thing is my dear friend, Jeff Belanger, told me years ago, don't try to educate anybody. Just do your thing. If somebody asks you a question, answer the question, but don't, because I was thinking, I could have like a seminar and we could do, investigative procedures and this and that. And he's like, don't do that. Don't do that. It doesn't go over that well in the paranormal world. And that's why I put out the book, How to Be a Paranormal Detective. I had one previous to that, Detecting Paranormal. And there's foundations that you use in investigation, and it doesn't matter whether you are a insurance fraud investigator or a homicide investigator. There are certain industry standards and best practices that you make sure that you check off, the boxes of what you've done and how you did it. And you qualify your investigation along the way by doing that. And you qualify your witnesses and that sort of thing. And people will then turn around and say, well, you're just a skeptic. And I was like, yeah, that's what investigation is. You have to be a skeptic. And this is the only thing that I try to do as far as a teaching point is think about it this way. You have on this side, gullible. Whatever this person tells you, you're going to believe, and oh my God, that's what happened. And then you have this over here, the person that rolls their eyes at you when you say, yeah, I'm a ghost investigator. I'm a paranormal investigator. And they go, oh, geez. That's a cynic. That's a cynic. A skeptic is here. And that skeptic floats around on that continuum from gullibility to cynicism. It floats around in there and based on the evidence that it finds. And so that's what skepticism is. Skepticism is not cynicism. Skepticism is a good thing. Just because somebody asks follow-up questions on the fact that you saw a ghost, you go, well, where were you standing? Was there a window? Were there cars outside? There's all kinds of things that can cause anomalous visions that can lead you to believe something's happening. That one of the best experiences I had is a lady up in Mineral Wells contacted me, and she had just bought a house called Haunted Hill House, right? And it's a house right next to the Baker Hotel, and it used to be, they say, it used to be the brothel and the speakeasy for the big hotel. So all the rich guys and the young men would sneak away from their wives or girlfriends or whatever and sneak over to this house that was right next to it. And you hear this all the time, right? Everywhere that something's haunted that's in the 1850s to 1910, it's like, oh, it used to be a brothel. It used to be a brothel. It's great. There was a lot of brothels. Trust me. I'm not saying that there wasn't. I'm just saying it's just very common, right? So she asked me to go up there and investigate it. And I told her, I said, well, when I do it, I have to do it by myself. And I need the property for 24 hours. If you want me to do it, I mean, I can come up there and hang out with you or whatever. But if you want me to do an investigation, I have the house by myself. So I go up there and she shows me the house and everything. And she leaves and I secure all the electrical to the house, let the house sit there and cook. And I do metal detecting on the backside of the house. While I'm doing metal detecting back there, I found a woman's earring, a bracelet, and a knife. So I was like, hey, and the knife was really old. The knife was a folding knife, bone handle with real, regular steel knife that was rusted completely open. But it was a nice knife when it was old or when it was new. And so after I did that, I go into the house and I start doing my stuff and I rotate all my equipment out. I use analog and digital audio recorders and analog and digital video recorders. And that's pretty much all I use. I'll use like an EMF reader to figure out whether there's any residual electrical going on in the house. But that's why I secure the electricity to the house. So nothing's going on, right? Supposedly. And I do my evaluation of that. And then I take a couple of other measures, on doors and windows to make sure that nobody's trying to trick me. And I'm not accusing anybody of trying to trick me. However, I don't know if you know this or not, but there has been trickery going on in the past. There's been, that sort of stuff that's actually happened with the paranormal in the past. So you always have to, make sure that nobody's trying to trick you. And so I was doing this and it was about 2:00 in the morning, stay up all night long doing this. It's about 2:00 in the morning and I'm in the kitchen and I walk out of the kitchen into the front entryway, which I kind of do a button hook to a set of stairs that are going up on the left-hand side. At this point, The front door is behind me, and where I came out of the kitchen is like at my 2 o'clock to my right. I start going up, and this ball of light comes out of the kitchen, out of the corner of my eye, comes out of the kitchen, and I go to look at it, and it shoots out the front door. And I did skydiving. I did competition skydiving for about 18 years. I had the best adrenaline dump I've had in a long time, man. When that happened, I was like, wow. I'm 50 something years old. I've been waiting for that moment my entire career doing this. Amazing, right? So I'm looking, I don't see it. I don't see anything else. And I decide I'm not going to allow whatever's going on to dissuade me from my process. Right. So I continue going up the stairs. I go up and I do my thing up there, and I change up my stuff, and I come back down. A couple of other things happened. A particular door kept opening up, and I took a magnetometer to it. I took a bunch of different EMF readings of it, trying to figure out, is there a switch in there? What is going on? But yeah, it would open right up. And there was a couple of other things. And so I wrap everything up, go back home. A couple of weeks later, I'm in my kitchen, and this ball of light off to my right-hand side. And I go to look at it, and it zooms off.
In your house?
Yeah, in my own house. And I'm like, I have an attachment. This is crazy. And then I started thinking, Gregory, what else could this be? And I'm like, damn it. So I call my wife. She's a para-optometric. She works for an eye doctor. I was like, hey, honey, I was in Haunted Hill House a couple of weeks ago. Remember that? Yeah, there was this big ball of light that zoomed past me. And then it just happened in the kitchen. She's like, you need to get to the office. And I went to the office, and I was having ophthalmic migraines in my right eye.
Oh,
so it was, I was like, son of a, why couldn't it be real? I was so disappointed, but that's the point, is when you have evidence, it needs to be real evidence. It needs to be good evidence. And and I'm not saying I didn't debunk it. It's just, it was already bunked, right? You can't debunk your own stuff, I don't think, So anyway, when it comes up being something normal, you need to go, hey, remember when I had this thing happen? This is what caused it. Also, so all of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did see another interview with you. So what are your thoughts on some of the more current stuff? Like, people use SLS cameras, also use like the SB7 or sound devices that come through to scan the radio frequencies of various types and sizes.
Right. So I'm gonna say this in law enforcement. If you have a bunch of different personalities in law enforcement, right? And some guys love answering 911 call. The 911 call comes in. That's what they live for. They get on, they get in their car, and they're like, all right, I'm going to answer every call that comes out. I'm going to try to get to it. Some people like working burglaries. Some people like trying to find burglars. Some people like working wrecks. Some people like working traffic. I particularly, I liked exploring weird places. Like I would do whatever's happening, but I was the cop that would pull over to the side of the road and go check out of my car, and then walk the river to the other street, and go under bridges and stuff like that. And in 25 years on patrol, I found 3 dead bodies and 4 meth labs, just, getting out of the car and walking around in the woods. Right.
Oh, wow.
So if we're all doing the same thing, if we're all doing traffic, nobody's doing burglary, and nobody's arresting any fentanyl, distributors. So when they bring new stuff up, I like the new stuff just because, okay, they're doing something different. If we were all doing the same thing, it'd be really, really boring. And that's what's so really weird about the paranormal. I think it has a lot to do with so many people aren't certified to do anything. They haven't read a book on it. They watched a TV show. They got a black T-shirt and an EMF detector and whatever, and are out doing what the TV show's doing. There's a lot more to figuring this stuff out. The real basic stuff, like I've seen people, they follow their EMF, their K2 meter, they follow it around, looking for the thing, and they get near the fluorescent light with a ballast in it. It's like, oh my God, and it's pinging back and forth. Or I did there was an event up in Missouri I was doing, and just for fun, I sat down. I have a really good EMF reader. And I set it down just to see how many people came by and would set it off. Well, everybody was setting it off, and everybody's chasing their gadget around, based on these pings. Right. And then I gather everybody up and said, okay, take out your phones, put them on airplane mode. All the ghosts went away. And it was really disappointing. It's like the place got really quiet. There were some other things that happened, but that means that we can't prove what those other things were. But when everything's going off and it looks really active, it's like, first thing you need to do is shut your phone off. And so it's those things, that just the real basic things, just to clean. Because if you're using EMF, if you're using radio frequency, you need to sanitize the area that you're in so that you can prove that it's not man-made. I was in, and actually this was in Missouri also. This was at the Independent Order of Oddfellows up there at Belvoir Winery. And this was a Kindred Spirits event with Amy and Amy Bruni, Adam Berry from Kindred Spirits. Late that night, there were some VIP folks that were still wanting to go out to the hospital and do some stuff. And I volunteered. I said, yeah, I'll go out there with them. And I went out, and we set up in this one particular room that they talk about being very active. And I said, hey, do you want me to interact with y'all? You want me to just, no, let's do it together. I'm like, all right, everybody's phones out, go to airplane mode, turn them off, put them in your pocket. And we were just using, like K2s, and they had something else over there. And then I had my really good EMF reader. And we sat there, and I witnessed these two ladies have a conversation with something. Their K2 was just responsive on everything. And I checked the area. There's not a trick. Jesse, the guy that owns this place, would not do anything like that. And I watched them have this experience that I have never seen in my life. And it went on for, I don't know, a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. And then it went away. But I was thinking, I'm like, all right, the next day I was out driving around the neighborhood trying to figure out where the cell towers were. Would it be possible that a cell signal would be, and it's not. But I'm driving around, I'm looking at the cell towers, trying to pick up something. I'm not picking up anything. And it would have to be, it was miraculous as far as the response to their questions. Good and bad, they're, red and green, and I can't explain what happened.
And they did have their phones on like airplane mode because
we had our phones turned off.
Because phones and two-way radios are the biggest culprits for the K2 meters. They can go off. Yep.
And so I don't believe Jesse would do anything that would be weird like that. Yeah, I mean, like try to do some sort of trick, because it just doesn't. That would not help their deal, and it didn't help. What happened there didn't help because it was just her and I, or the two ladies and me, and we didn't record it. We didn't do anything because we wanted it. We were so stupid and had the thing sanitized. So I would have had my analog audio or my analog video recorder. I could have set that up and we would have gotten it, but I just figured we were going to go out there for an hour or two and I was going to watch them do this stuff and, nothing was going to happen. Well, it did. And I've never seen that like that anywhere else in my entire life. So,
no. So do you have any abilities or like, are you sensitive or are you just strictly just curious and just go to these different spots?
So I think that I have a heightened, awareness of behavior, just from being a cop for a long time and specializing in interview and interrogation, body language, language inflection, forensic examination, statement examination, stuff like that. There are a few mediums that tell me that I'm an intuitive, and I don't believe that because I've been so wrong at so many different things. It's like, you got that wrong, and that's one of those things that it is very, very dangerous in law enforcement, and could be very, very incompetent in paranormal. It is forcing your belief to match the evidence instead of following the evidence to a conclusion.
Right.
Because you go into something, you go, and I've done this. I did this in, this is Lantu Island, an hour or so away from Hong Kong, South China. And, I went there and I took, I went to, Lantau Fort, Fanlao Fort. And it was a fort that they put there to, combat piracy. And it had been abandoned for a long time. And I was going there and I honestly thought there was going to be like a parking lot with, some fences and there would be a gate guard and maybe a snack bar and stuff. And there was not. It is completely abandoned. Oh, wow. And I got there. And when I got there, I'm like, all right, I'm looking for these particular spirits or ghosts that are there, that are reported to be there. And I get there. And this little blue bird like comes and lands like right next to me and he's chirping and chirping. He's like he was beeping. He was making all this noise and I'm like, yeah, get away from me, bird. Yeah. You're a pretty bird. Wow. You're cool. All right. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm looking at my stuff and he's jumping around and I'm there for a couple hours and he's following me around everywhere. And I'm like, it's an incredible, beautiful bird, but he's like, you're in my way. I'm trying to do ghost stuff. Right. And so I think I found where, there possibly was a graveyard there, indications of what it would be a graveyard and just went around and looked at the ruins and then, did this little, a little ritual that this lady in the village told me to do with these beans and stuff. And I did that, and I left. And it was only a couple of years later, I realized, wow, the spirit goddesses send you a little blue bird to give you a message. Oh, wow. In that area. Yeah. So I'm sitting there going, you cool bird, get out of here. I didn't try to make him go away, but he was irritating. And I find it really interesting because my paradigm was I was going there for this reason, ghost thing, and here my metaphysical, my spiritual thing was happening all around me. And I refused to see it because I was focused in on what I was forcing my experience to be instead of just getting there and having the experience and wow. Then taking in and trying to make sense of the evidence that was there, which the evidence would have been this bird. Yeah.
Wow. So what are your thoughts on Ouija boards? And have you ever used one?
I got one right over there.
Do you?
Yeah. Actually, a guy was really weird. It's too far for me to go. It's way over there in the chapel.
Where's the beach? Which way's the beach?
Yeah. So I was at an event in Birmingham, England. I was in Warwick Castle, I think. think that's where we were. No, we were at Coomab. No. Anyway, we were at some cool place in England. And there was a guy there. And at the end of the event, he just walked over and said, "You're supposed to have this," and gave me this handmade Ouija board. Wow. And it's a Celtic handmade Ouija board that it has, it's pretty cool. And have I ever used it? No. But it's sitting on my desk, and Karen Dahlman, who I respect highly, and a lot of people do. I've seen people use it at Warwick Castle, where Aleister Crowley actually did some incantations and stuff in this particular room, and we were in there, and they broke out a Ouija board, and it was doing some pretty crazy stuff with it. And, a lot of people think of it as a portal to hell or something like that. But it really is, it's a piece of cardboard, or it's a piece of wood. And I look at it kind of as a tool. And if you're good at doing that, I know some people, they used to go up to Jefferson, Texas, to the History, Haunts, and Legends in Jefferson every year. And they had volumes of stories that they had gotten out of the Ouija board, out of their Ouija board. So whatever the tool is that helps you breach that communication gap, I think is a good thing. However, your brain works and what works for you.
Yeah,
you don't like them?
Freak me out.
I took a course with, let's see, once again, this I guess this is dementia that's happening. I can't remember that.
We're all getting older.
But this professor wrote a book about occult, and he had a class on occultism and history and all that stuff. And I mean, this is a very pragmatic guy. He's not overly. He's an academic. He just studies history on occult, which doesn't mean Satan. It means things that are hidden. And he had experiences with a Ouija board where he swears, when he was a kid, they would play with it. And the last time that they played with it, it spelled out a girl's name and said that she would lose her head. And guess what? 2 weeks later, this girl got decapitated. Yeah. And so this is a prominent PhD academic talking about this. And he said he didn't play with it after that. Yeah. You look at stuff and go, all right, well, is that just imagination or whatever? Well, I look at it a lot mathematically also, as far as the probabilities of something happening. And to spell out a girl's name and say that she will lose her head, they thought the Ouija board was talking about going crazy or having some sort of attack or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then to be, to die of decapitation, that is a miraculous, profound prophetic statement. You do the math on it, it's all over, a million chances that somebody would say somebody's name and that would happen to them. So, I had an experience. Oh, this is another good example of trying to force your belief into an investigation. We went to, actually it was Dave Schrader and who else is there? There's a bunch of people there. And we went to Lep Castle in Ireland.
Great place.
And we were up in the chapel, and I think there's 11 to 13 legendary ghosts there, to include an elemental. And one of the stories, and I shouldn't say story, it's a good piece of history. A brother killed another brother in the bloody chapel, and the brother that he killed was a priest. So I go up in there and I set up my equipment up there, and there was probably 12 people with us. So there's people doing a lot of different experiments and stuff, doing different stuff. And all I did was hang out up there. I wanted to get down on the second floor in the halls down there because there's a red woman that has a knife, and she is seen on the second floor around there. I didn't go down there, but anyway, I stayed up in the Bloody Chapel. And I was up there for a long time. And then we wrapped up, got our stuff down, went down and talked to Sean and Ann that owned the place. We hung out there. He's a musician. He played us some songs. We hung out for a little bit, and then we got out. On our way out, there were some people taking some pictures. Tammy Cote took some pictures, and we left. And a couple of weeks later, she sends it to me. She's like, look at this photo. As we're leaving Lep Castle, we turned around and took a picture of Sean and Ann standing at the front door. And there's that big pane window above them. There's a priest standing in that window.
Oh boy.
So, wow. I whip out my probability scales again and go, what are the odds? Anybody could go, oh yeah. Pareidolia, some clouds were doing this and doing that. And it made it look like a priest. And I'm like, oh, okay, that could happen randomly, but why didn't it look like a dog? Why didn't it look like a cat? Why didn't it look like a tree? Like you're saying it was maybe a cloud and a tree or whatever. Why did it look like the very thing that I was looking for? Because if you guys looked at it, you would not mistake it for a nun. You would not mistake it for a busboy. It's a priest standing there.
And I can tell it is a good picture. It's an interesting picture to me, and it does look a great deal like a priest.
Yeah,
like you
he's
said,
huge.
It could be beyond the pareidolia realm too.
Yeah, he's 12 feet tall if he was real. But once again, is space and time work the same way in the spirit realm as it does in the physical realm? I don't know. So
it's hard to tell.
So I've had people say, well, yeah, well, if that was a real guy, he would be like 12 feet tall. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know how geometry works in the spirit realm. So
still freaky.
Well, why don't we talk? We did talk momentarily about your book, How to Be a Paranormal Detective. Is there anything you have to add on that by chance, or
nope?
No, okay. Nope. That's fine.
No, it's funny. It is my belief, and this is not based on arrogance or narcissism or anything, I don't think, but I've read a lot of books on the paranormal. I've seen no book like mine, and it is very, very much more. It would be like going to a college level. Look, this is how stuff works. This is what you have to look out for. And I give examples. I give a lot of real world examples, like the yogurt shop murders here in Austin, and how they conducted that investigation and why it got derailed and why it was such a problem. Those events, and people once again, oh, you're a skeptic. I'm like, yes, I think you mean you're trying to say I'm a cynic. But in the yogurt shop murders, there were over 40 people. Okay, these were 4 young girls that were raped, murdered, and then burned.
Ooh.
Okay. Over 40 people. Yeah, they worked at the 3 of them worked at the yoga shop. The other one was visiting. Over 40 people came forward and said, I did that. So if you have people that ate up with trying to get attention, trying to be famous, get in the newspaper, get their name out there, that they would say that they did like the most horrific thing that has probably ever happened in Austin. Maybe somebody would say, hey, I got a ghost in this bar and my bar is haunted. Why don't you come down here and pay me some money and you could stay there all night long and drink some beer. And, it's good marketing.
No, definitely.
So, it matters whether the story matches, like with the Haunted Hill House. When I left out of there, I felt that, okay, this probably was a brothel. In the front room, there is a a fireplace. It's a big fireplace. If you bend over, crawl into the fireplace, stand back up, you could put a Ford van in the space above it. Wow. That's where they kept all the liquor. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then as far as the prostitution, as far as the brothel part of it, it's like, how do you prove that? It's not in any of the newspapers. There's no cops didn't write reports about that stuff back then. So how do you, and it wasn't illegal. So how do you figure this out? Well, you call somebody like Gypsy Jules with Beyond Oak Island and go, hey, Gypsy, can you go up there and metal detect the back of this thing and see what you find? Guess what she found? She found a trash dump. And in that trash dump, there were these little tins. They're about that big around. They look like a skull tin top, except it said 3 widows on it. 3, I just mispronounced that. 3 widows, like women who died. Women who had husbands who died. 3 widows. They're condoms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were reusable lambskin condoms. So there's a big, yeah. Hey, it was 1800s. And so, you correlate your evidence with the testimony that you get from a location. Say, okay, this used to be a brothel. It's like, all right, what is your supportive evidence? What's your associative evidence? What's your demonstrative evidence? What's your physical evidence? Do you have anything other than somebody said that this used to be a brothel? Well, guess what? Yeah, we do. That was a brothel, no doubt. So when I get outside of my expertise, I don't just keep pushing it. I go, okay, I'm in a realm I'm not familiar with. Who do I know that's really good at this and get them in there instead of trying to capture this place for myself? That's not my goal in this to say, Lizzie Borden's, I am the Lizzie Borden expert here. I'm not trying to do that. I work my specialty. And then when I run out, but I still have some boxes to check, man, I got to get other people in that are experts, not just somebody else with fresh eyes, but somebody that's really good. Yeah.
Okay. And we can talk about your books now. Give me a moment here and I'll bring them up on the screen here.
Okay.
All right. And we should be sharing right now, in fact. We're not. Here we go. Whoops. Here we go.
There we go.
Hey.
I didn't have something done quite right. That's
yeah. I need to read Resilient. I need to read that book.
Let's go to 1 second here. I'm sort of sharing here. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the after action report?
Okay. So, it's really funny when I had interviews with different people, they would say, why in the world would you delve off into Roswell, that meat grinder of a, just viciousness of, in investigators just chewing each other up. I've always been really interested in spacecraft. I used to see spaceships when I was a kid, when I was 5 or 6 years old, because I lived really close to Bergstrom Air Force Base, which was the SAC command at the time there in Austin, and they launched weather balloons every day. So when those weather balloons would get way up there, they would turn real flat and like a Frisbee, right? And late in the afternoon, when the sun rays were very long, they would reflect off of those. They look like these amazing big things flying by. And luckily I had a pilot that lived next door to us, and I asked him about those, and he told me what they were. But as far as Roswell, my wife and I used to go out there all the time. I'm very, very interested in it. And I started to get to know Stanton Freeman and Don Schmidt, Tom Carey, and I always wanted to meet Kevin Randall. I really liked the work that he did. I never got to meet him face to face, but when this book came out, he immediately called me and had me on his radio show.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we talked about it. And so what I did was I boiled it down to all the people that really had interaction for sure with the event. And I chronicled what they did. And then I took that and used forensic statement analysis to look at whether they were telling the truth or not. And then I took the Roswell report done by the Air Force, the almost 1,000 page diatribe of nothingness that it has probably about 14 or 15 pages that matter. And right away you can look at something like that and go, okay, they're trying to overwhelm you with and to make it look like they did a whole bunch of stuff, and they exaggerated so much stuff. So I use forensic statement analysis on their transcripts and on their statements, and the fact that they led their witnesses. You know, people say, well, the government's lying to us about Roswell. Really? Show me. Well, you know, they're lying. Like, no, you can have that opinion. Well, after I did my my analysis of their stuff based on best practices from the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, they're lying to us. Everything they did was completely manipulated, and they manipulated all the witnesses who are all now dead. They manipulated all of the transcripts. If those guys would have been working for me doing this investigation, I would have reassigned them. I would have pulled them out of there and reassigned them.
Well, I look at it this way. A guy comes out who would know what a weather balloon is versus something that could be extraterrestrial,
sure,
and says it's extraterrestrial right away. Yeah. And then they try to backtrack it.
Yeah.
That person, that right there to me is a big red flag.
Sure. And Colonel Blanchard at the time, I mean, you know, if you're, let's put it this way. If you're a general at the Pentagon and one of your colonels puts out a press release that he found a flying saucer, I'm assuming you're going to fire him. I'm assuming. And if he goes, well, I didn't do it. My you know, PIO released that statement. And I'm like, okay, well, you're fired also for letting your PIO do that before you actually read it. And it's contradictory to what they're saying the material was. They said in their press release, it is an intact disc, not pieces of stuff. And so you look at that and you go, you know, Blanchard, we got to move this guy to Antarctica, right? Don't we need to? And hopefully we're like, this is a flat earther Antarctica. You know, we got to get him over the wall over there, and he's going to be off planet. Yeah. You know, he made it to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was like 4 people from the president, dude. Whatever he did in Roswell, he killed it. Whatever he did, he knocked it out of the park. And man, he made a really good quagmire to where people can't figure out what happened. So in a reality-based world, what could it have been? All right. It could have been a weather balloon. It wasn't, you know, then they say, well, it was a mogul balloon. It was, we were listening to the Soviets, you know, they change it, keep changing the goalposts. So, there's a point when you're conducting an investigation. I conducted a murder investigation. I had a husband and wife, that were there, and they changed their stories so much. And then they flipped on each other and they changed their stories. And there's a point to where the witness or the suspect that keeps changing their story is no longer credible. The United States Air Force in the realm of UFOs, UAPs, and Roswell are not credible for civilian information. And it's unfortunate, and I understand part of it. But who would, so let's say, we have a guy here and he's married and he beats up his wife. She calls and said, hey, my husband beat me up. And we go, okay, let me talk to the guy on the phone. We're not going to come out. Hey, guy on the phone, I need you to investigate the fact that you beat up your wife and give me that report so I can file charges on you. That's what they did with the Air Force. They went to the Air Force and goes, hey, you guys need to investigate yourself on Roswell and tell us what happened. They didn't, they didn't use an independent source to do this investigation. They didn't have an oversight committee of civilian academics. They didn't have the normal stuff you would have an investigation. You can't do that. The Air Force should have recused themselves from the investigation and said, we'll monitor the classified stuff, but y'all need to get a team or a guy to come in here and do this. That's independent. But they didn't do that, of course. I hate to be a conspiracy theory. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. It's just a fact that everything that they did points to their being deceptive or incompetent. One of the two. You can choose what it is.
That's a good point.
So what's to just go off beating the path a little bit? What's your opinion on cryptids like Bigfoot and stuff like that?
Well, we know that creatures like that existed in the past. There were ape-like, man-like creatures. I am 3% Neanderthal, so boom. That's why when my wife comes out and I'm sitting in the garage, she goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Nothing." "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing." That's my 3% Neanderthal. I'm in my cave. I'm not doing anything. I'm not getting attacked by a dinosaur right now. I'm not that hungry, so I don't need to get up and get out of here, but I'm very comfortable. So we know that things like that are true. I've seen a chupacabra, what people would call a chupacabra. I make fun of chupacabras a lot. But we have these, I've seen them, when I was growing up, what you would say is a chupacabra, and you got like a coyote or a wild dog that has mange. Looks a lot like a chupacabra. And they're running around and I feel really bad for them, but that's just kind of the way it is. So, I believe, Dr. Mayor on, Expedition Bigfoot, she has found, that's what she does, right? So she goes and looks for things, and she has found 2 unknown primates in her career, 2.
Right.
And so when we're thinking about, it's 2023, are there still things out there that we don't know about? Absolutely. There's probably things in your backyard, that somebody who studies insects or somebody who studies, whatever bacteria, there's stuff out there that they don't have cataloged yet. So, when I went to Phenomicon last year, and you're looking at, a quarter of the speakers at Phenomicon have PhDs.
Right.
And so you're listening to these folks. And when somebody like that stands up there, that has the credentials and says, absolutely, a population of 500 or less creatures could sustain themselves in the United States and in Canada, Alaska, without us knowing it. If they're really smart and they're very stealthy. And when they say that, I have to shrug my shoulders and go, okay, that they're the authority on that. This is not some guy that grew up in the woods and, there was an old mangy bear that was running around that had his front paw hurt. So he's walking on his rear legs everywhere. And going, I saw a Bigfoot. And, that's not what it was. But you got very, very studied, accredited people saying this. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the Diaries of a Paranormalist?
Okay.
Encounters with Death.
So I would have never written that book. I would have actually probably never written How to Be a Paranormal Detective if it wasn't for Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Rosemary came up to me at an event and she had my Detecting Paranormal book. And she goes, "Hey, Greg, we signed this." And I'm like, "Where did you get that?" She goes, "I ordered it on Amazon." I'm like, you could have just told me, I would have given you one. She goes, "Don't ever give away your books. If somebody wants them, they will pay for it. They're not too expensive."
There you go.
So I signed her book and she goes, I want to do a book with you. I'm like, when the Pope S of the paranormal comes over and goes, "I want to do a book with you," you just say yes.
She's tremendous. She was tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did How to Be a Paranormal Detective. And I wrote it, and then she would just bleed all over it with red pen saying, "What is this? Explain this. I don't understand that." And so we worked it all out that way because she's very much on the spiritual realm. I was very much coming from a procedural realm, and I'm giving good examples, but a lot of times when you're talking or when you're writing, you know what you're talking about, but it doesn't translate as well to other people. So we did that. And to follow up that, she said, "How about a book on your paranormal experiences?" And I said, "Well, nobody wants to read that." And she goes, yeah, let's do this. So that's where Diaries of a Paranormal's come from. But it was only half done. There was supposed to be 10 more stories, and halfway through it, that was the last book Rosemary Ellen Guiley actually worked on. And she passed away. Halfway through it. And the publisher wanted me to write the other ones. And I was like, "No, this is my book with her, and that's it." And so, yeah, it's really funny. Somebody, mentions like, "Well, did you write this on vacation or something?" I'm like, "No, I travel a lot," because it was, there's a lot of very obscure places I go to. And so, yeah, it was cathartic writing that book, Yeah.
Nice.
That's
cool.
Awesome. And go ahead.
You want to talk about your upcoming events or?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the next one that's coming up, I am very, very honored to be the MC for the first Tombstone ParaCon. They're having the first ever paranormal convention in Tombstone, and the city asked me to come in and do that. So that's going to be great. Bridget Marcourt from the Girls Next Door / people are like, "What? Girls Next Door?" Yeah. She has a podcast called Ghost Magnet that she interviews a lot of people on, and she does a really great job at it. She's very, very interested in paranormal and does a lot of travel and stays a lot of haunted hotels and stuff like that. She's going to be there. Taps West Coast is going to be there. Ricky Rocket from Poison, the drummer from Poison. He's got a new project. I think it's called Legend Tripping. If you go onto YouTube, he goes to like abandoned places and paranormal places that have paranormal reports out there in the desert, out in I think in Arizona and in California. And he's got it. Yeah, you guys would enjoy that. It's I think it's called Legend Tripping. And so he's going to be there. They're going to have a demonologist. I don't remember what his name is. And then the regular ghost folks are going to be there to do the ghost tours and going to do investigations of different bars and brothels there, and the OK Corral and the cemetery and all that stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's that'd be a tremendous place to do.
Yeah.
I'm doing you had me at Poison.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I had going to be doing a Strange Escapes event with Amy and Adam from Kindred Spirits up at Waverly in Kentucky and Louisville. Michigan ParaCon, of course, every year. If your listeners, they've never gone to Michigan ParaCon, man, it is absolutely worth it. We always fly into Detroit and I rent a car and I drive up because they have like the Bob's Big Boys, the big boy restaurants. They don't have those in Texas. And so it's just an obscure, weird, it's like, they got all these big boys. So we go in there and do that. And then you can cross You can see Mackinac Island across the bridge, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And once you get up there to Sault Ste. Marie, you have the locks right there, and you can watch those 1,000-foot long ships like right there coming through those locks, and then they lower or raise them up. Then Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah in September. And that's going to be great. Expedition Bigfoot crew is going to be there. Skinwalker Ranch is like right outside of Vernal. So those guys, that whole crew will be there.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. People that, you think of Utah, most people that have not been to Utah think of Utah, and you get something in your head. You're like, yeah, why in the world would I go there? Because it's so weird. That's why you go there. I'm telling you, Salt Lake is great. They have great restaurants. The town is laid out very strange. The roads are huge. The tabernacle is there. The Latter-day Saints tabernacle is there, which is really cool to go look at. They have the Latter-day Saints museum there. And then take the trip to Vernal. I think it's like a 3-hour drive out in the desert. Absolutely beautiful. And Vernal, you walk around anywhere, and there's a dinosaur bone there. There's a dinosaur bone there. There's just dinosaur bones everywhere.
Really?
And, it's amazing. Yeah, it's a really amazing town. So if anybody ever wanted to make a trip to Utah, it would be in September and fly into Salt Lake and then take the trip out to Vernal. It's absolutely worth it.
Wow.
I don't know whether I'd stay there like a month. I don't know whether I'd do that, but like for a long weekend, man, it's so much fun. It's so weird. Everything's just different. So yeah. And I got a couple more, but they haven't been announced yet. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, okay. Well, sounds good. We're about out of time.
Okay.
I want to thank our guest, Paranormal Explorer researcher and international lecturer, Greg Lawson, for coming on with us.
It's been my pleasure, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. It's very interesting.
His books, Roswell, The After Action Report, Diaries of a Paranormalist, Encounters with Death, How to Be a Paranormal Detective, are all available on Amazon. The Disorient Express, One Way Ticket to Our Site, and The Carry-On, Something Rotten in Paradise, are available through Barnes & Noble. His website is theparanormaldetective.com. He also has some videos and interviews at his YouTube channel, The Paranormal Detective. His upcoming appearances include, just a review here, May 5th to the 7th, Tombstone Wild West ParaCon. May 11th to the 14th, Waverly Hills. August 24th to the 26th, Michigan ParaCon. September 8th to the 10th, Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah. September 1st to the 2nd, GalaxyCon in Austin, Texas. Our next show will be April 20th with John Kachuba. And then we'll be taking off May 4th, and we'll come back to you May 18th with Dr. Shelley Kerr. If you like the broadcast, consider helping us out by liking and sharing. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching on Facebook, or by giving a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel and sharing on YouTube. If you watch this far, don't forget to also hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. And Chuck, do you have anything to add?
Just thanks for watching, and Greg, thanks again for a great show.
My pleasure, man. Good.
You got it.
Hey, Greg, do you have anything to add by chance?
Do I what?
Anything to add at the last second?
No, man. Thank you for thank you for asking me on, and had a good time.
Please hang on, if you don't mind, through the outro for a moment or two to the backstage. And again, just one more reminder, we will return April 20th with John Kachuba. And so long.
You're watching Paranormal Files, Into the Darkness on CARC Universal.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
This has been a CARC Universal